Sir, very much, very much. Thank you, sir.
For your warm words of welcome. Thank you, ma'am. Now, may I invite Dr.
1 second, Usha. 1 second, Usha. 1 second. Only 1 second.
Please
Usha,
introduce
Yes, ma'am.
guest.
only 1 second. Only 1 second.
Sure.
Dr. E. Ram Ganesh, Professor of Education.
Yes, Usha. Live has started. Please start, madam. Usha, madam, please
Yes,
start.
please, ma'am.
Ma'am,
There is some background noise. That's
Thank
going
you,
on.
Thank you very much.
Hello, ma'am.
The most respected and high-profile resource person of today, Dr. Ganesh, Professor and Coordinator of
There is some disturbance from your side.
DRS2, Department of Education Technology, Bhaditasan University. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome you, sir. Next, the most honorable and dynamic Secretary, General Secretary and Correspondent of our college, Mr. Manjeet Singh Nair, respected, ever motivating principal, Dr. M.G. Raghunathan, former principal and mentor and guide of our Guru Nanak College and advisor for management, Dr. Malin Morais ma'am, Vice Principal, Dr. Rajashri ma'am, LRS Kalanidhi ma'am, Dean Academics, Deans of various schools, Controller of Examination, HODs of different departments, faculty members of our college and other colleges, Tamil Nadu and other states also. Good afternoon, one and all present here.
Hello.
My heartiest and warm welcome to one and all present here. Really, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our high-profile resource person, Dr. E. Ram Ganesh. Sir did MA in Philosophy and Psychology also, MSc Mathematics, and double PhD, one on education and the other one on computer science. This itself shows that the science stream and the arts humanities stream, how he is.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Okay. A warm greetings to one and all present here. Dear esteemed participants, it's a kind request from our end to mute your audio and video till the end of our chief guest address. In the following question and answer session, you can unmute your mic and video to clarify your doubts, or you can text them in the chat box. Thanks in advance for your kind understanding. Guru Nanak College Autonomous is celebrating its Golden Jubilee in this academic year 2021 to 22. As a part of its celebrations, the School of Humanities, along with IQAC of this esteemed institution, is organizing this 5-day International Faculty Development Program on the title Examining the Critical Frontiers in Social Sciences Domain. Limitations live only in our minds, but if we use our imaginations, our possibilities become limitless. With this positive note, let us begin the finale of this event. Our today's session is on the title Higher Education, Changes and Challenges, with our most distinguished Professor Emeritus from the Department of Statistics, University of Madras, Dr. M.R. Srinivasan. Guru Nanak Devji, the presiding deity of our esteemed institution, says that I'm a songbird, I'm a meek songbird, I offer my prayer to my Lord. Similarly, to offer our prayer to God, I request the learned fraternity of this special gathering to join us for our college prayer. On behalf of the management, advisor madam, principal sir, vice principals, deans and deputy deans of different schools, and a special mention to the School of Humanities, Guru Nanak College, I, Dr. V. Usha, from the Department of BA English, extremely elated to welcome you all for this fifth and final day of the 5-day International Faculty Development Program on examining the critical frontiers and social sciences. We should welcome joy with an open heart and even more with an open mind. We cordially invite our ever energetic, ever supportive, and ever motivating Vice Principal Students Affairs to welcome the gathering. Madam, please.
Good afternoon to our most respected resource person of today, Dr. M.R. Srinivasan, and all learned participants. We have gathered here for the fifth day of the 5-day online international FDP on examining the critical frontiers in social sciences domain, organized by the School of Humanities under the convenership of Dr. N. Malathi, Dean Humanities. On all our behalf, I heartily welcome our most respected, distinguished resource person of the day, Dr. M.R. Srinivasan, Professor of Statistics, retired, University of Madras. Hearty welcome to you, sir, on all our behalf. We are indeed very much honored to have you in our midst to share your knowledge and expertise on the most important topic of the day, higher education changes and challenges. Hearty welcome to you, sir, on behalf of our college and on behalf of all the participants present here. Next, it's my proud privilege to invite and welcome our respected General Secretary and Correspondent, Dr. Mandasam Nair ji. Hearty welcome to you, sir. Now next. We next invite our most respected advisor, Madam, Dr. Nadine Moraes, the most dynamic former principal of our college. Hearty welcome to you, Madam. It's our proud privilege to welcome our most respected and ever supportive principal, Dr. N.G. Radhanathan. Hearty welcome to you, sir. But for you, our programs are all incomplete. With your steering efforts, we have been doing a lot to this institution and for the welfare of all members of staff from other colleges. And I give it a pleasure to invite our most respected Vice Principal, Shri Dr. Rajeshri, Madam. Hearty welcome to you, Madam. It's a joy to have you amidst us. We have our Controller of Examinations, Dr. Kumaradu, Joint Controller of Examinations, Dr. Anita Maheshwari, for him working round the clock. Hearty welcome to you both. And it's my proud privilege to welcome all the deans of all schools of excellence of our Guru Nanak College who have been doing a lot and lot for the welfare of our institution. Hearty welcome to you all. And I have a great pleasure in welcoming the heads of all departments, the faculty members of all colleges who are participating in this program, and our own parent college, Guru Nanak College. Hearty welcome to all of you. On behalf of the participants and on my own behalf, I congratulate, appreciate, admire, and felicitate the noble efforts of Dean Humanities, Dr. M. Marty, for her unstinting efforts in conducting this 5-day international online FDP. A hearty welcome to you, madam. And I know you have a very big team from the various departments of the School of Humanities, BA Defense, Economics, BA English, BA Sociology, MSW, and MA Defense. Happy welcome to all the heads of all these departments of School of Humanities and all the members of faculty and the students of Guru Nanak College of this School of Humanities. And I heartily welcome the Master Secretaries, Dr. D. Usha from BA English Department. Happy welcome to you, madam. I think you have been lending a wholehearted support for the success of this program. And I sincerely thank and happily welcome the members of staff, Dr. Satish and Dr. Arun from Discom Department, who have been doing a wonderful job in telecasting this program and streaming this program on YouTube and Google Meet. And I'm really, really happy to see that we have been doing a lot even during pandemic and even after pandemic for the welfare of all of us. And all of us are busy in some way or the other. And we teachers have been craving for the day, like who will come and do something for us. And here comes Guru Nanak College every time, even during lockdown, we have been doing a lot under the stewardship of our respected principal and the able guidance of our General Secretary and Correspondent. And now also this 5-day online international duty is a very, very big effort taken for updating and empowering the knowledge of all kinds of faculty from all departments, from all colleges. This is an international recruitment that we've seen lots and lots of cheerful faces, very good to listen to our resource person. And with these few words, I happily welcome Dr. Sikh. Happy welcome to you, Dr. University. Thank you so much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, madam, for your warm words of welcome. We now invite the Associate Professor and Head, Department of BA Economics, Dr. C. Murthy, to introduce our today's chief guest to the August gathering. Sir, please.
Good afternoon to one and all present in this webinar conducted by School of Humanities and IQAC, Guru Nanak College, Chennai. I am happy that I am given an opportunity to introduce a great personality of our webinar, who is none other than Dr. M. Srinivasan. Dr. Srinivasan is a well-known person to the field of mathematics. I would like to reveal Dr. Srinivasan's academic record and academic performance. Regarding academic record, he did BSc Honors, Osmania University, MSc Statistics, Osmania University, Hyderabad, then MBA, University of Madras, PhD Applied Statistics, University of Madras. Then he has elevated from Assistant Professor, Associate Professor, and Professor of Statistics at University of Madras. Then he has several assignments. First assignment, the visiting scientist, University of Manchester in UK, Assistant Professor, Washington University, Texas, USA. Then visiting scientist, the University of Canada, University of Naples, Italy. Then Associate Professor, ISI, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, in Bangalore. Then Professor, University of Tanzania. Then other position he was holding. Then Chairman, BOS, Dean Academic and CDC, BOS member in other universities, member NAC. Then research, he has guided several research guided 18 candidates he has produced in statistics, and 2 candidates is working. Then he has published 75 articles at national level and international level journals, and he invited lectures in India and abroad, including many renowned endowment lectures. He is elected as a member International Statistical Institute, Netherlands. He is a member Institute of Mathematical Science, USA. Regarding teaching specialization, courses offers under MSc Statistics, MSc Actuarial Science, and MPhil Statistics. He has specialized in linear models, design of experiments, sampling technique, matrix algebra, then catalognical data analysis, biostatistics. Then he has authority in research methodology. Then in the field of research, he is specialized in linear models and estimation of variance components, design of experiments, catalognical data analysis, then outliner detection and robustness, data involvement analysis, statistical genetics. We are very fortunate to have such an eminent person to enlighten us with his wisdom and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for introducing our most eminent chief guest of today's FDP. To be inspired is great, but to be an inspiration is an honor. With these suitable words, we affably welcome our most respected chief guest, Professor retired from the Department of Statistics, University of Madras, Dr. M.R. Srinivasan, to deliver his presentation on the title, Higher Education, Changes and Challenges. Sir, now the forum is waiting for you. Sir, please. Sir, please kindly unmute your mic, sir. Sir, your mic is on mute, sir.
Sir, can you please unmute your mic, sir? Sir?
Sir,
Sir, can you please unmute your mic, sir? Please unmute your mic, sir.
sir is using his headset, ma'am.
Oh God.
Even he could hear. Yes. Sir, please unmute your mic, sir.
Usha madam, sir is having some technical problem it seems. I told him to come out from the meet and then come inside.
Okay, ma'am. Sir
So
has let
just
me know.
that's what is getting delayed.
Okay.
Participants, sorry for this delay. Just because of the technical problem, only sir is not able to unmute his mic. So please, sorry for this delay. Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes, sir. Now it's very much audible, sir.
yeah,
Thank you very much, sir.
thank you. I'm trying to share my PPT. That's what I'm working on.
Sure, sir.
I think you should permit me to share my PPT. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, sir.
Yeah, I think you should permit me to share my PPT.
Okay, okay. Can you send?
Yeah, because unless until you permit me, I cannot share my PPT
You can.
because that button is off. Sharing a PPT button is off.
You can, sir. You can. Now you can. Please, please, please try, sir.
No, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Sir, you have the option to share your PPT, sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm. That share button is not working for because I think you have not given me permission.
Not like that, sir. Ma'am, Malati ma'am.
Varle.
Yes, ma'am. Sir, can you send it to my mail, sir? I
Yeah,
will share it. I will share it from here,
I,
sir.
I will do
Please,
that
sir.
now. I will
Please, sir.
do
I
that.
will share it.
Yes. Can I get your email ID, please?
Yes, sir. I'll message. I'll message.
Yeah, sure.
So now you can talk. I'll just send it to your mail, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. So first of all, respected correspondent and secretary, Dr. Dayarji, principal of the Guru Nanak College, Dr. M.G. Raghunathan, Dean Dr. Malati, Vice Principal of the college, other faculty members of the college. It's a privilege and honor to be here virtually to talk to you and share some of my views on the higher education challenges, changes, and challenges. Indeed, I was in one more college last week talking about outcome based education, which is also an important area where now we have talked. Just hold on for a second.
Sir, have you sent it, sir?
Yeah. Just a minute. Just a minute. Yes. Yes. Have you got it?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about all this technical goof up. You have to live with all
No
these.
problem, sir. No problem. Please.
Yeah. So I was just mentioning about this outcome-based education. Where a few decades back, the education was basically a teacher-centric education. Now, we have moved on from teacher-centric education to student-centric education. So when you say it's going to be a student-centric education, obviously the hiccups which you are going to have, the challenges which you are going to face as far as student-centric education is going to be really enormous. So one has to be really strong enough to face this particular sort of so-called student-centric education and move to a higher plane so that we can compete globally. That is what the buzzword is all about. The buzzword is globalization. So how are we going to move ahead in this particular arena of so-called globalization? So I'm just going to talk about an idea about what was higher education till now, how it has moved, and what is it going to be like probably in the years to come, not for a very long period, because we can't predict or forecast for a very long period. So obviously that's something which we can predict for about few more, probably a couple of decades. That is itself is going to be a long period. And then we are going to see what sort of challenges we are going to face as far as this education, higher education is concerned. So let me start with a very simple quote by Professor Ishpal. What remains after education is complete is our understanding of the subject and not what we remember. See, the whole of the education which we were concentrating is basically the grades or the marks or whether he has passed in first class or second class or whatever it is. The days are gone now. I think now even the employment, if you look at it, people are not worried about much whether you got 90% or 95%, whether you have the technical skill or whether you have the knowledge to work on. So coming to the first and the foremost question that we need to introspect is, where do we stand now in the field of higher education at the global level? Because we have to take stock of ourselves. Unless until we take stock of ourselves, we cannot move further. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to take stock of where we are. And I'm sure all of you agree with me that we are nowhere in the top 10 or even top 100, including the institutions like IISc or IITs. They are not in the top 10 or the top 100 of the institutions based on the global rankings. But of course, there's one group of people who argue, probably there's a sort of a fair argument also, that the type of ranking that is being considered or given is not fair enough. Because you have to consider factors like social equity, public funding, and so on and so forth before we just plan for ranking. And that is the same the case even as far as the NIRF ranking also. Indeed, I had an argument when I was sitting with a higher education secretary once that you cannot put all the institutions in one bag and start giving a ranking based on it. Indeed, it should be state-based, it should be a different type of yardstick. So you ought to have some sort of a stratification before you go for rankings. So that's my argument, whether people agree with it or not. So now I think that was the point where even the government agreed that we should have a state ranking also besides the central ranking. So you have factors which are like social equity, public funding, all these needs to be looked into before one considers the ranking part of it. But whatever it may be, we have miles to cover even by our own set of basic standards. Why? Why is it so? Indeed, we have to think about it. We have to think about it. Why is it so? Why is that our standards are not up to the international level? Why are our grades so bad? Even institutions like IITs are not coming up to the par with the international standards. So this makes us to think about what is the status of higher education, past, present, and future. And yes, so now if you look at it, there are over 200 universities, probably even more than that nowadays, because the number of universities are getting added up probably every month. And probably I have given you a number of about 30,000 colleges which are there all over India. So past the post of liberalization from 80s, we have seen a lot of deemed universities and private universities sprung up, which have come up, and I think they are there to stay for a long time to come. Many of them have come up with innovative courses, and probably the type of infrastructure that they have as far as the private institutions are considered, they are much, much better. Much better than the public standard universities or public universities. Right? Then why are we lagging behind in the race for the international standards? So even though there are infrastructure, the infrastructure is there, but still, even those private universities have not reached up to the level of so-called international rankings. Now let us look at our big neighbor China, with a major disadvantage of non-speaking English country and backward in higher education, probably about 3 decades back, 2 to 3 decades back. China, if you can look at the status of China as of now, it has made a remarkable progress as far as the quality of education concerned, as well as the premier institutions which are there in China. Indeed, I think it is some of the universities are there in the global ranking also. So the country where English is not vastly spoken, and 3 to 4 decades back it was much, much backward. And within these 3 decades, it has gone top many notches above our educational standards. Why and how? China, as you know, has undertaken a package of comprehensive reforms in higher education for the past 2 decades. So that's what is happening in China, and it continues to happen. China has declared education, science, and technology to be the strategic driving forces of sustainable economic growth and have increased financial allocation. So, as far as the allocation of funding to higher education institutions are concerned, in science and technology, China is spending lots and lots of money as far as institutions are concerned, higher education institutions are concerned. So the type and the quality of research that is pouring in from China is also up to the global standards. So prior to that, higher education was in the public sector. That's an interesting point which you have to note here. If you look at China, right, few years back, higher education was in the public sector with no tuition fee and even took care of the living expenses of the students. This was the situation probably about 3 decades back. Now what happened is the concept of cost sharing and cost recovery was introduced in the early years of reform. So that's how they have broken the barrier of what is called the public funding, and they talked about the cost sharing and cost recovery that was being introduced as a part of reform. Tuition fees have now been made compulsory. So what they say is you have to pay the tuition fees, we will provide you the support for it. So that later when you get the job, you have to repay the money. And this is what is happening. This is what is happening. Even the Western countries are following that particular part to a larger extent. They are willing to support the students and to take up higher education, right? And the funding is given to the students. so that they can take up higher education, and later, after over a period of time, they are supposed to refund back the education, refund back the money. The higher education institutions in China were expected to diversify their revenue sources through affiliated enterprises to augment the funds for teaching and research. So this is another point where they have, I think, they have sort of outshining over the country like India and probably even Western countries also. They say that the universities must be diversifying their resources, diversifying their revenue resources through affiliated enterprises. Probably you have to underline that particular part of it. So they have affiliated enterprises which are going to support these institutions both in teaching and research. Even the well-developed countries which we know like US or UK or Germany, you can see the major plans. There are major plans for investment in higher education as a process of continuity to excel in education and research. So they are interested more in probably excelling in education and research. So that is what the Western countries are interested in. So not in the question of basic education, they try to see that their education reaches the excellency, the level of excellency. The United Kingdom has injected new dynamism in the higher education. So that is what is happening as far as the Europe and the other countries in like Germany and so on and so forth. You can see Australia. Australia, of course, is also a developed country. They have initiated comprehensive reforms in higher education with enhanced government funding, along with increased provision for subsidized loans and scholarships for students. Probably the important underlying denominator in all these places is the funding and support. And the governments, both in the West and China and other countries, they are trying to augment not by direct funding, but by other means also, so that the higher education reaches on par with the so-called globalized levels. So they are attracting students from all over the world who augment the financial resources, but also help in enhancing their potential in research output and technology innovation. So that is the part that they work on. So they are interested in supporting rather than the financial resources are being supported by the government in addition to the resources which are raised by their own ways and means as far as the universities and institutions are concerned. They are doing a lot of collaborative work, and the companies and institutions are coming out in support of the institutions. It could be based on a general funding, it could be based on projects or whatever it may be. Now let us look at one more country or two more countries which are on par with us, so-called developing countries like Brazil and Indonesia, probably Philippines also. They took up ambitious programs to reform their higher education sector. It was realized that though primary and secondary education is important, which we also agree with it, right? It is the quality and size of the higher education system that will differentiate a dynamic economy from a marginalized one in the global knowledge-based economy. So the basic education has to be there, no doubt about it. We have to support them. It's very important that all the kids born in India have to get their primary education. Now, but what about the growing economy or the growing economy or the globalization? The dynamics is more in the higher education rather than the primary education, though primary education is important. We are not discounting that particular fact. Now, the mantra of liberalization, due to increased trade, investment, and mobility of people across borders, forced nation states to adapt their systems of higher education to change the global realities. Indeed, nowadays, I think most of you agree, our own kids, most of them are traveling to UK, USA, Germany, probably some of them, as we have seen, a lot of people are traveling back from Ukraine, Philippines, and so on and so forth, where they are going for higher education because they have a provision where they can get educated. Probably it could be a professional education, or it could be liberal arts, it could be sciences, or whatever it may be. So inward looking policies are given goodbye, And several countries are reshaping their systems of higher education to be globally competitive. So instead of saying public funding depending totally on the government and working on it, now they said now that it is going to be mutual, where the government will provide support, you have to augment them, and probably that's how you can work on it. Right? Pragmatism in approach rather than ideology is the driving change. Now, again, how pragmatic we are with the fast changing global scenario in higher education. Are we really pragmatic? So that's a question which we need to ask. Probably we need to ask this question probably at regular intervals. At regular intervals. So let us look at a sort of a history of the Indian education system. Now, tracking our own education system, probably all of you are familiar with the Kothari Commission 64 to 66, which first examined various aspects of education at all levels and gave a very comprehensive report full of insight and wisdom, forming the basis of national policy of education even before education entered the concurrent list. Indeed, I have to underline this particular part that the education is now in the concurrent list, which has created a sort of some sort of a blocking, wherein the new education policy, which has been enunciated by the central government, probably passed by the parliament, but it is for the states also to take up this particular new education policy. And why central government has done this particular one? Because it is now in the concurrent list, and so they have taken the initiative by having the Kasturi Rangan committee, which has come out with a new education policy a couple of years back. Now, the present system of 10 plus 2 plus 3, which is now working, emanated from this particular Kothari Commission report. But the important question that needs to be asked: how far we have traveled to attain global standards in curriculum and research in the areas of physical, chemical, life, and social sciences. So this is something which we have to ask. So it's, as I told you, you have to look at your own chart of what happens, right? See, this one, probably 64 to 66, quite more than 50 years, right? Or close to 50 years. We have to see what is happening now, that whether things have changed a lot. Is there a radical change as far as the education is concerned, wherein we can say we are on par with the global standards? Yes, next. So in 1985, you can see a comprehensive appraisal of the existing educational scene was made, followed by a countrywide debate. This was the 64-65 Kothari Commission, which was the basis. Now, in 85, a sort of a review was done, and this review, it was noted that the general formulations incorporated in 68 policy did not fully get translated into a detailed strategy of implementation, accompanied by assignment of specific responsibilities and financial and organization. So you could see the drawbacks of what happened. Though 10 plus 2 plus 3 system has come to stay, and it is still there, we have seen that the review of the policy has shown that where we have the problems. What sort of problems do we have in the implementation? What sort of problems we have as far as the financial support and organizational support are concerned? So these were the questions which were raised in the appraisal, which was done way back in 85. 85 also is almost 3 decades back old, or 4 decades back, close to 4 decades. It was further noted, that is very important, that problems of access, quality, quantity, utility, and financial outlay accumulated over the years had assumed such massive proportions that these require to be tackled with the utmost urgency. So you can see that review has pointed out certain specific factors, certain specific problems. So you can see a bunch of problems which are there, which are posing as a big challenge for the current higher education system to move on as a sort of a competitive one with the rest of the world, right? So based on this particular background, it was noted that education in India stood at crossroads and neither there was a normal linear expansion nor the existing pace and nature of improvement of the situation would help. So that was the understanding which I'm sure many of you will agree, right? So is it going to, what sort of the expansion has taken place over the period, right? So we are still at the crossroads. We are still at the crossroads. So a lot more needs to be done before we just jump into the bandwagon of so-called developing countries or developed countries as far as education is concerned. It refines sensitivities and perceptions that contribute to the national cohesion, a scientific temper, and independence of mind and spirit. So, the contribution of all these factors also should be taken into consideration. Education develops manpower at different levels and also the substrate on which research and development flourish, being the ultimate guarantee of national self-reliance. So, you can see the contributing factors are many. There are many factors which we have seen, right? It is not a quantity alone. How many are passed, how many we got it. Probably the numbers are growing very well. There's also an equity which factor, the gender equality is also coming to, is taking up shape to some extent. I'm not saying to the full extent, but to a good extent, right? But there are still issues which needs to be sorted out as far as the education is concerned, especially the higher education, right? So unless until we do that, obviously we are going to have a real problem in competing with the rest of the world. Accepting the fact that education is a unique investment in the present and the future, a very comprehensive national policy of education document was approved in 86 and supplemented with a program of action. So looking at the overall picture, that whatever the money that you invest in higher education, it's going to be a long-term investment. So money in higher education investment by any body, it could be a public body, it could be a private body, or it could be any person or any group, that is going to be a long-standing one, a long-standing investment which is going to stay for years to come. And it just gets trickled down to the next generations also. It is widely believed that technological advances and the shift in demographic India provided a window of opportunity to productively engage its high pool of human resources and become a leader in the expanding sector of both services as well as the manufacturing sector. So we agree with it. I think probably maybe 2 decades back, our IT was booming like anything. Now it has come down a little, and it is because of the skill quotient which has gone up and the availability of manpower probably much cheaper, and probably our minds are not in any way inferior to any of those outside the country. So the superiority or probably the intelligentsia or probably the type of output that is being brought in, I think has created a big pool of human resources which can, and I'm sure will make us a big leader. And we are going to be a part of not only in the manufacturing sector, but in the services sector. Indeed, it is largely visible in the services sector than in the manufacturing sector. So, however, it requires, you have to go back, please. Go back. Yeah, it would, however, require revamping the higher education, please. Yeah, revamping the higher education sector. So you need many steps to improve the quality and fix many problems as far as the higher education is concerned. So we have seen a comparative picture, probably how countries are developing. We have seen the different types of policies and programs as far as the government has taken over the period. And we can see what is the status as of now as far as education is concerned. But to underline the point, we are in no way inferior as far as our knowledge pool is concerned. But it is important that we tap them properly and make use of them properly. Right. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. In addition, public funding for higher education increased. That is there. Public funding is increased. To bring in a degree of transparency and accountability, recurrent funds were allocated amongst universities on the basis of funding formula. Indeed, I think this particular funding is something which was very good probably a few years back, a decade back. I think now there's a common complaint among all the universities and institutions that funding from institutions like UGC or DST or whatever it is has drastically come down. Or probably it has lessened, maybe drastically come down, may not be an appropriate word, has come down a lot, whereby the institutions are suffering a lot in providing a quality education, right, and quality research, right, to address faculty related issues, changes in the salary structure, right, like the that is something which we call it as the CAS, stringent requirements for the appointment and promotion of faculty members, quality of PhD programs that we are there. These are all the things which are, of course, started looking into it. Probably we talk about quality, we talked about the quantity, all these are being taken care of. So the reform programs also address the issue of access to quality teaching, learning, and research resources. Now, you know that there are institutions like IITs, IIMs, and other places which are funded centrally. Indeed, central government has come out saying that they are going to have IIMs almost in all the states, IITs in almost all the states. And so obviously the type of funding which the central government is providing is going to these particular institutions like IITs, IIMs, IISCs, triple ITs, ICERs, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and so on and so forth. So these are fully supported by the government. These are fully supported and public funded institutions, right? But what about the rest of them? But what about the rest of the institutions? Yes, next slide, please. So I think we know very well that the economic reforms have undertaken in the early 90s. Their influence on development of higher education has been limited to opening up private institutions, but the influence on dynamics of education has been ignored or less understood. Well, we said we have opened the doors to private institutions. Many private colleges, many private universities have come into existence, but nobody has understood the dynamics of education. How the private universities which have come into existence are playing a role, and how the public funded universities are playing a role. Are they on par? Are both of them providing the same quality of education? What about the infrastructure provided by both the institutions? Are they up to the mark? Or what other problems whether these institutions are facing? Now, the dynamics of the system, whether it is in terms of curriculum, whether in terms of infrastructure, well, that needs to be understood properly. And though it has been, it has been open to many private institutions and private bodies to open universities, which we call as private deemed universities. You can look at the type of infrastructure that they have. Many of these private universities, they have a very good infrastructure, which I can say they are on par with the world standards also. And I'm sure all of us agree with it. But what is happening is, which many of you agree and some of them may disagree with it, also that is it something which is commercial? Is it something which is commercial? Is education a commercial commodity, a commercial product, where these universities have become a commercial institutions to sell education? I'm not saying it is happening in general, but this needs to be looked into, right? We say that education is not a commercial product. So obviously, but what is happening really, that needs to be looked into. Now, there is a need for a holistic review of instruments currently available for managing the higher education system. And as all of you know, that we have UGC, we have AICT, we have Teachers Education Board, we have Medical Board, so on and so forth. There are so many boards which are there. And so obviously these institutions are finding it difficult to reach out these boards on regular intervals, spending time, sending proposals, and getting them cleared by these particular institutions. Right? So in this context, it is important to develop a sort of a national policy framework for higher education in the current and emerging context. So that's where then the concept of new education policy has come into being. So we have seen that though 90s are fine, the private universities have come. The private universities, the infrastructure is good, but what about the type and quality of the students that are being brought in by these particular institutions? Are they much above what is being bought by the public institutions? Where do they lack? Where do we lack? What is the benefit they have? What is the benefit which we have? So obviously, we ought to do some sort of a SWOT analysis in order to see how these institutions are behaving and what are the common perennial problems which we face as far as the higher education system is concerned. So I'm just going to try to list some of the systems, some of the problems which we face. And you can see these problems are being addressed in the new education policy, which are being proposed, which was proposed by Professor Kasturi. Now, the problems are, you can see a fragmented higher education ecosystem. That's something where you can see the education system has become much more bits and pieces. We have a professional university, you have a university of music, you have a university of sports, you have a university of art, you have a university of teachers education. So this sort of a thing has become more fragmented, right? So that's the sort of an education ecosystem which we have. Now, we are giving less emphasis on the development of what you call cognitive skills and learning outcomes. Indeed, I mentioned in the very beginning of the lecture itself that the learning outcomes are very important. So, the question here is the curriculum should be based on the learning outcomes and not based on the assessment or the assignment that we give, but it is based on a demonstrable outcome. So a student at the end of a program, whether it could be a diploma, whether it could be a degree, or whether it could be a postgraduate degree, it could be a professional program, he should be able to demonstrate the knowledge that he has acquired. But what we have at present is at the end of a 2-year or a 3-year or a semester-wise, he writes a 3-hour examination, which is not fully demonstrable at all. It is only a one part of it, which is only a one part of the assessment process. So the outcomes are very important as far as the system is concerned. So I have to underline the word, it should be a demonstrable outcome. Not bothering, like I was saying, I have given the quote, don't bother much about the percentage or grades or whatever it is, but bother more about what the real outcome is. What has the student learned after the 3-year program, after a 2-year program, after a 5-year program? So that's more important rather than saying that he has completed his degree. He got his BSc, he got his BA. Now, what did he get after doing his BA, BSc, a 3-year program? Now, that is very important as far as the program is concerned. So, a rigid separation of disciplines with specialization and streaming of students into narrow areas of study. So, this is what is happening. Probably if you go to Western countries, the narrow areas will go as you go up the ladder much higher. But here what is happening is, as soon as you finish off your level 2, that is 10+2 system, you are narrowing down to saying a student takes up a physics course or a chemistry course or a maths course. Now, is it a right thing to do? No, just physics is enough. Then along with that specialization, is it not necessary that you should have some allied areas which are important, some skills which are important, right? And these are something which we have to look at. So it is not merely the knowledge in one particular course, a narrowed down course, but lot of other applied areas, augmented areas, additional areas, special areas. So all these are to be considered rather than having a narrow area of study. Now, limited access to socially disadvantaged areas. Now, if you go into the areas which are quite disadvantaged, which are deeper inside, no, they have a lot of difficulty in moving down to urban areas. Probably the difficulty which all of us see, it is very difficult for them to come to the urban centers and have education. Traveling, if not traveling, if they want to stay in a hostel, the money is spent on them. So these are some of the things which are putting students, right, especially the socially disadvantaged students in the socially disadvantaged areas. There are few institutions which are higher education institutions. I am not talking about schools. They don't teach in local language. Most of them English. Most of them, I say. And students who are coming with a background of their local language, they find it extremely difficult to cope up with the English education which we are having at the higher educational institutions. I'm sure all of you agree with me. I have felt it large, especially when I was teaching the master's course. Though we are doing more of equations and formula, I know students had a real difficulty in understanding what the subject is all about, right? Because there's a gap. The teacher talks in English, probably some sort of Tamil in English or local language in English, and the student is much more proficient in his own language rather than English. Probably he will have one paper in English or no, right? So this is one particular problem which he faces in higher educational institutions. Limited teacher and institutional autonomy. Well, people say that colleges are autonomous, but let me tell you, even the autonomous colleges are not fully autonomous. Either they have not utilized their autonomy status or they are still being put into the so-called the pressures of the university system, right? So the liberty and the freedom of autonomy, providing a strong curriculum, a quality curriculum, along with others like your skills, is not there because it is quite restricted, quite limited as far as institutions are concerned, especially in colleges, which I see. Next slide, please. Inadequate mechanism for progress of faculty and institutional leaders. I know when I talk to many of the teachers, they say that they are forced to spend more time on teaching and they have very little time for doing research. Why research? Even to innovate themselves with the updated knowledge, they are not able to do it because the current mechanism of education doesn't provide them an opportunity to do that. Less emphasis on research in universities and colleges, including research funding across disciplines. Indeed, I have seen this as a peer committee member of NAC. When I visited many colleges, one particular set was on research, and many of them, as far as research is concerned, are lacking far behind. Even if they try to rush and run for some publications, they do it for the numbers' sake, but not for quality's sake. So the numbers which you publish are merely numbers. If you ask for the quality, obviously, I think many of them will start blinking. Suboptimal governance and leadership of higher education institutions. So even the governance is not fully utilized. The leadership of the many of the members who are strong enough, it is not being fully optimally utilized. They come, they teach, and they go back. There are people who have the zeal and enthusiasm. Now, are you fully utilizing their services? The answer is no. Some of them get opportunity, some of them don't get opportunity. Right? Some of them are able to walk in at the right places at the right time and probably grab the opportunity. Many of them who are not able to walk in, they are not able to get an opportunity to display their qualities. In an ineffective regulatory system. Well, I was at CDC for 2 terms, almost something like 6 years. But I agree with most of the educational institutions, especially colleges, that the regulatory system is much more stringent. For each and everything, you have to run to the system of the so-called universities. Well, that is what the rule says, and you have to obey by the rule. And this has made the system or the colleges a little ineffective. Because even for starting a new course in an autonomous college, it has to be approved by the university, the concerned university. Indeed, I have to tell you, but as far as Tamil Nadu and Madras University is concerned, ours is much, much better than many of the universities. Their regulatory system is much more stringent than the regulator system of our own state. We are far, far better as far as the regulators. I'm not saying that we are completely free of the regulatory system, but we are much, much better. Large affiliating universities resulting in the low quality standard of education. Well, as far as Madras University is concerned, if you look into number of affiliating institutions, we have crossed 150. We have crossed 150. I'm talking about colleges as well as other institutions, other research institutions. We have crossed 150. So how do we expect the university to tackle the 150 institutions which are under its purview? So it's going to be really a tough job for them to work on it. So you are naturally going to sacrifice the quality when you try to have so many institutions coming under one umbrella of an affiliating university. So all these problems, I told you these are not an exhaustive list of problems. These are sort of a short list of problems. So this compelled to go in for what is known as a new education policy, which was initiated by Dr. Kasturi Rangan and other members. So we will just mention briefly about this new policy of new education. I think the papers are putting it across on a regular basis about the NEP, the new education policy, the problems which we face as far as the NEP is concerned, the sort of friction that is going on between the central and the state as far as the implementation is concerned. Of course, I am not interested in talking about the friction part of it, but my interest is the problem is still persists, but NEP has come to stay. NEP has been approved by the central authorities, and now as far as the implementation is concerned, how it is going to be implemented, is it going to be modified, is it going to be there as such? Now that needs to be done. But as far as the central universities are concerned, I am sure they are already started. I am a part of the University of Hyderabad, where they have set up a body to look into the implementation of NEP. Indeed, probably you would have seen a couple of days back that there is going to be a common aptitude test for entry into the central universities. And they also said the other institutions can also come and join. And few of the institutions have already joined the bandwagon. Few other institutions have also joined the bandwagon. They said, we are willing to take those CAT, their common aptitude test, and make use of it for admissions and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to talk about this particular new education policy, which has been proposed and which has been approved by the central government. But as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, it is yet to take a formal shape and formal approval. But let us see what this program is all about. Higher education institutions shall have the flexibility to offer either a 2-year program, master's program of 2 years for those who have completed a 3-year undergraduate program, or 1 year for those who have completed a 4-year undergraduate program. So you can see what is happening here. So it is going to be 10 plus 2 plus 3 has now changed from 11 plus 1 plus 4, or 11 plus 1 plus 3 plus so on and so forth. So your 10 plus 2 plus 3, the school education has been changed. So we have seen that it is going to be 5 plus 3, if I am right. So that is going to be a school education, primary, middle, and higher school. And you can see here that your degree program is going to be 4 years, like in professional courses, right? And you can do a 2-year master's program or a 1-year program. Indeed, I have seen recently there's a modification of these, a 4-year program with research. You can do straight away a PhD program also without doing a master's program. That also I've seen in the paper. Now, MPhil programs, which was a bridge between the master's program and the PhD program, that has been discontinued. that has to be discontinued as per the new program. The policy says that high-performing Indian universities shall be encouraged to set up campuses in other countries and other universities, such as those among the top 100 universities in the world, shall be encouraged to operate in India also. So it is something a two-way process. So any institutions who are in the top 100, then you can go and set up your institution somewhere outside the country. And the top institutions which are there in the world can set up institutions in India also. Now, that again, there are questions which are being asked by many groups of people, like we moving out or they coming in. A national research foundation shall be established to facilitate merit-based but equitable peer-reviewed research funding. So they were talking about research funding, which is very important. Now, NRF, like we had a National Science Foundation in USA, there is a National Research Foundation which is going to support funding for research activities. The policy says that the center and states shall work together to increase the public funding, to increase the public investment in education uh, to 6% from the current 4.3% GDP. So that is also one of the goals as far as the NEP is concerned. Yes, next slide, please. Higher Education Commission of India. So here we talked about the problem of a regulatory mechanism, going to UGC, going to AICTE. If it is an engineering course, in one college or one university, they will have an MBA program. MBA, you go to AICTE. For engineering, you go to UGC. For engineering, you go to University of Madras. For MBA program or some other engineering program, you go to AICTE. So this sort of a compartmentalization is there because we have too many regulatory bodies which are there. So here, there's going to be only one, which is going to be Higher Education Commission of India. It will be set up as a single overreaching umbrella for entire higher education, excluding medical and legal education. So your teachers' education, your professional education, arts education, all of them will come under this umbrella itself of so-called higher education system, higher education commission. Private, public and private education institutions will be governed by the same set of norms for regulation, accreditation and academic standards. So all of them will be sort of set, compared with the same yardstick of measurement or yardstick. So it is going to be comparable, whether it's a private university or whether it is going to be a public university, you are going to have the same standard of measurement, right? Okay, good. Government will phase out the affiliation of colleges in 15 years, and a stage-wise mechanism is to be established for granting graded autonomy to colleges. So the question of affiliation, which I told you about 150 institutions under one Madras University, they want to phase out that. And they are going to have a grade wise. So up to 10 years, probably they will have one grade, wherein a partial accreditation is needed by the university. Probably more than 10 years or more than 20 years, they say that you are totally out of the clutches of the university, you are totally autonomous in nature. So that sort of thing has been proposed as far as NAP is concerned. Now, the other interesting thing which I have put across is science, arts, and commerce gets blurred. In the sense, there's no more going to be a compartmentalization. People can easily move from one to another, of course, depending upon their specialization and the interest. Remember, specialization and interest. And they will also have the chance, to enter into the frontier areas which are of interest to them, besides the courses that they are interested in studying. Right? So that is what your NAPs are. So here you can have a professional education, engineering also going to be a part of the regulatory university. Vocational stream also is going to be a part of the regular university. So all these are going to be a part of one university. So it's going to be more a multidisciplinary in nature. So there will be no rigid separations between arts and sciences, curricular and extracurricular activities, vocational and academic streams. Students can select of their liking across the streams, So depending upon the number of courses and the number of credits which he earns, he can move to that particular domain or particular area. Vocational education will start in schools from the 6th grade and will include internships also. So you can see the students who are nowadays, what happens is students with vocational courses, they are given lesser importance. We are saying they are also going to be a part of the mainstream. They are also going to be a part of the mainstream, right? Yes. Next slide, please. Under the NEP, undergraduate will be either 3 or 4 years duration, and you will have a multiple exit options. Like at the end of first year, you get a certificate course. Second year, you have a diploma. You have a third year, you will get a degree, and probably the fourth year, you will get an advanced degree, a degree with honors or whatever it is. So college will be mandated to give certificate after completing 1 year, right, in a discipline or a field, including vocational and professional areas, a diploma, and a bachelor's degree after 3 years. So you can see this is a sort of a graded one where you can just keep on moving depending. So the reason is, suppose you have done a 1 year program or a 2 year program, and if you want to quit due to some reason or the other, there is every possibility that you can come back after some time, right, and then complete your course and earn your degree. Complete your course and earn your degree. That's possible. Right. Now, that's an advantage that you have. Now, the curriculum is also being streamlined so that there will be a mobility as far as people moving from one place to another place. Indeed, that is something which we talk in detail as far as learning outcomes are concerned. So you can move from one institution to another institution. The flexibility is there. The flexibility is there. So that is something which you have to look into it. Right. So here you can see these are some of the. So the government will establish an academic bank of credit for digitally storing academic credit. So as I told you, the credits are more important. How many credits you have earned from different higher education institutions, so you can transfer them from one place to another. So this is very important, and this is very common in the Western universities where you can transfer your credits from one institution to another institution, depending upon the institution. So that particular institution where you are going to move in, either they will accept all the credits or they may accept part of your credits. If they accept part of your credits, you have to do some additional courses. If they accept all your credits, then you don't have to do additional courses. So overall, by looking at these 11 points, probably you can go deeper into this particular NEP, which is available in the website. You can see this NEP announced by the government is truly visionary in nature. For any country to build a world-class institutions, there needs to be a good policy and regulatory framework. So regulation is being taken care of, the accreditation is being taken care of, right? The systematic order in which the education has to be streamlined is being considered. So all these are being a part of the NEP, right? This policy articulates exactly the kind of framework, and it will enable to build us a world-class institution. And I'm sure many of you, especially from social sciences and the basic sciences, agree that a student who has done a graduation of 3 years in our college or institution, they will find it very difficult to go abroad because they say that we need a 4-year program. So now, if you have a 4-year program, which is there in the professional courses, and they are able to move to the Western countries much easier, now we have the same comfort. Our students will have the same comfort that if they do their 4-year program in social sciences, in liberal arts, in basic sciences, they can also have the comfort and the easiness of moving to the Western institutions for doing advanced program if they want. Right. Next slide, please. Now, based on these set of points which have been raised, starting from the Kothari Commission, the new EP, and the NEP, and so on and so forth, let us see what sort of changes we are going to see as far as the education is concerned. We hope it is going to happen based on the NEP, which I'm sure will be implemented in some form or the other. It allows students to seamlessly study various aspects that make for a well-rounded education to make great citizens of India and the world. See, this is important. You need, if you look into the outcome-based education, the outcome-based education says that the skill-based or the skill-based courses also are going to be a part of your regular program itself. So you are not going like what we have. You have 2 credits of 8 credits of skill-based courses and get some sort of credits for that. Now they say, why do you want to have a separate skill-based courses? Let it be part of your regular courses itself. That is what your LOCF says. That is what your LOCF says. Outcome-based education, which is student-centric. It looks at vocational and professional education and gives both an equal status. This is important to develop the workforce of a country and also to give equal dignity to the people pursuing vocational courses. Because nowadays the vocational subjects are not treated on par with the regular subjects, especially students who want to join higher education institutions. So here it also lays emphasis on the development of the Indian languages. So at the school education, the basic language, the basic level, they say it should be the local language only. Languages, as you know, it preserves our culture and needs to be grown and developed. The focus on languages will make our education system more inclusive because it will enable our population to come into the mainstream. Now you can see that there's going to be a regulator. So regulatory mechanism also will be made much more simple. One regulator will enable the creation of the true university. So as you know, the university, what it teaches the education, and the challenges now lies in its implementation for all of us. So it's important that the NEP is going to be there. The most important is how are we going to implement this NEP. Indeed, the teacher education also is going to be a part of the regular scheme. So as I'm sure many of you know or might not know about it, that if you go to institutions in Africa, the institutions in Africa will offer a 4-year course program. They call physics education, mathematics education, chemistry education. That is a degree that is awarded. Where the pedagogy of education is also taught, and the subjects are also being taught, and the allied courses are also being taught. The reason being that it is not necessary that you have courses in your own specialized areas or in your courses of interest like your physics or chemistry. The pedagogy of teaching is also important. So if you have done a 4-year program where teaching is also being a part of your curriculum, then obviously it will be easy for you to be a teacher if you want to go to a school or if you want to go to another institution where you want to study. So because the teaching pedagogy is also part of the curriculum itself. So similar things are going to be, because here also the teacher education is also going to be a part under the multidisciplinary system. The integration of the co-curricular activities at par will help students honor their hobbies and skills and make value addition in the areas of preference. So that is also, you can earn credits. Of course, that is also there. We are make it much more sharper so that how these are being brought in. So project-based learning, vocational learning at an early age, learning of skills, and inclusion of technology will help a child realize ambitions, gain multidimensional knowledge, and universal skills. So you can see that these are the changes which we expect, provided, I'm not saying provided, we have some part of the new education policy being brought in some form or other, so that we can compete with the rest of the world as far as education is concerned. Also, inclusion of professional and choice-based disciplines as a part of higher education, that's what is there now, will provide a new dimension towards honoring soft skills. So I told you that your soft skills is now embedded in your regular course itself. The new education policy has brought much awaited reforms for a long-term overhaul of the system. I agree with many of them that it is not going to happen in a day or a month or a year. It will take really fairly a long period to get the things done, but somewhere we have to start. We have to start So the starting is very important. How long does it take? Well, it all depends upon all of us. So higher education, the college affiliation system which prevented curriculum innovation will be phased out. So that's a bottleneck. Industry-linked curriculum and faster modifications based on industry needs, therefore helping the students. So you can also bring in faculty members from the industry to teach, and they can also give credits for that, so that it will be a sort of a two-way system, right? The flexibility of subjects, credit transfer, multiple entry exit points will ensure that everyone can complete a college education and learn the subjects of his or her choice. The students will not be restricted to narrow domains. That's a point which I've been mentioning again and again, that you can just keep on expanding your horizon, that instead of having a narrow area, you can just have your hand in other areas which are alike, so that at some point of time, if you are interested in moving on to the other areas also, you should be able to do it. You should be able to do it. Teacher training institutions will be strengthened and linked to multidisciplinary institutions. So this will help to prepare high quality teachers. Yes. As I told you, there is going to be a common aptitude test. Now, who is going to accept, who is not going to accept? That's a question mark. Now, that's going to be there, and it is going to be an aptitude test. It is not going to be a subject-based test. Now, as far as the investments is concerned, the policy does not mention anything on allowing foreign investments or for-profit education. So that's very important, that the NEP doesn't say that money can be brought in as a foreign investment. That is being not mentioned as far as the system is concerned. So you can see the other 2 points which are there. So you can have a diversified education. You can have your curriculum built in such that your power of critical and analytical thinking can go up as far as the students are concerned. Then your multiple entry options will help the students to go and come at any point of time, depending upon his convenience, and he can earn his degree at any point of time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Right. We talked about the changes we are envisaging as far as the NEP is concerned. Now, let us look at the challenges also when we want to implement this. The first problem, indeed, this is the most problem, is the inadequacy of funds. The financing issue is quite crucial, and analysis of funding higher education from both public and private resources are important. See, we are now totally depending on only the public funding. No, the private institutions have a very limited funding support. They support institutions in a very limited way. Even the corporate policy which says some 2% has to be allotted, that also I am sure they are not providing a proper support even with that 2% also. Right? They are using it for social cause, or they are using it for a sort of a primary education. Right? And the Western countries, as I'm sure all of you know, and that is happening. Even a person like Ratan Tata, they are putting a lot of their money to as a philanthropy to institutions like Harvard or MIT and other places, or Oxford. So, but what is interesting is there are many philanthropists in Western countries who are willing and who help the institutions to put their money, to put their savings for a better cause of higher education. But as far as the Indian system is concerned, the philanthropic support is almost, I can say, next to nil, or probably I can say it's very, very limited. It's very, very limited. So the overall funding patterns and trends, issue of traditional institutional funding and student financing need a review. So like the Chinese part, student financing. Now, student financing is very limited. They ask for if you ask for loans, then they ask what are you going to give as your support if I want to give you the loan? So that's a question which needs to be answered. So if you give a loan, then probably it will be supportive to the students. But the banks and other institutions, they are not fully able to support. Probably they are supporting if you want to really go abroad or probably something like that. But higher education institutions, probably they are funding or supporting like IIM and other places. But the regular institutions, the support from the financial institutions is very restricted or very limited. Higher education, the private sector has grown fast. This has not only increased capacity and enhanced students' choices, but also affected the dynamics of regulation. Its impact on financing arrangements has been very significant. So you can see the private institutions are growing, and it's growing in such a fast pace that it is creating an impact on the public funding universities and especially the financial aspects uh, as far as the public support is concerned. The focus is on the growing and vibrant private sector in higher education. These institutions have become a challenge to the state-funded universities and affiliated institutions. Though NEP assures of equality in private-public institutions, but the question is the public gap. So that's what I was mentioning. You talk about private institutions, the public institutions are less funded or not funded at all. No, there's a gap as far as funding is concerned between the public and the private institutions are concerned. Now, how do you bridge this particular gap? It's very important that we build this particular gap, because if we don't build this particular gap, then obviously how are we going to measure the quality of education as far as these institutions are concerned, right? Now, the other important thing is the public institutions which we talk about, they are looking at the social cost also. Social cost in the sense like supporting the downtrodden community by providing proper reservations. Now, what sort of support whether the private institutions are providing? The equity that again needs to be looked into it, right? So the role of higher education, role of I'm sorry, somebody. Secondly, the role of higher education in the development of workforce to meet the domestic as well as the global demand for qualified manpower. So here we talk about the transition from education to work. And you can see that there's a disjunction between the institution and the workplace. Now, how are you going to bridge this? It could be in terms of skill shortages, or it is in terms of necessity, or probably the other questions which are there, how these people who are being educated, qualified, will be fitted into a suitable workforce. So that's a very important, because what is the purpose all about? As soon as you complete, you get yourself placed somewhere, right? So the question here is whether these shortages which we are talking about, whether this fits properly into the needs and requirements of the so-called industries, right? So that has to be looked into it. So the need for vocational education and training sector is yet to take roots. How long will it take? That needs to be looked into. The two complement each other in skill development, and therefore a holistic treatment of the subject makes it necessary to cover this sector also. So we are talking about national education policy alone. We are not talking about a policy where the industries are there, where they come in, pitch in their support not only in terms of finances, but in terms of their mind, in terms of the requirements, in terms of the availability, in terms of their needs. So if they come over and be a part of the institution and train them, then it is going to build a gap. Now, are we going to propose, or your NEP provides any sort of a rule or whatever it is to these institutions to provide adequate support to the educational institutions? NEP has considered the problem but its implementation need to be looked at as a challenge. So the question here is, well, the policy is good, it's a visionary one, it's highly suitable as far as education is concerned, it's going to really help the students. All sorts of the positive aspects are there, but the challenges lies in funding, in supporting, in competing, and in placement. Now, how are we going to really look at it? That needs to be looked at. Now, coming to this particular part, now as far as the research is concerned, we are not able to, though they say that NRF is going to be there, research is very important if you want to compete. So, as I told you, people are just going for a payable journals. We should avoid doing that. Research is important, and the getting a PhD is only a starting point as far as the research is concerned. So, you must try to continue your research program. And for continuing a research program, you need some sort of funding support. Well, social sciences may be a little support, but the basic sciences and others may need a lot of support. Now, how far the support is going to be forthcoming from the public institutions as well as the private companies and institutions? Now, are they going to provide enough support in terms of projects so that research could be funded and we can have a good research outcome or output? The libraries, as you know, will be a good source of reference material. But of course, nowadays people talk about clicking a button to get the required material. But one has to be careful. We cannot click all the buttons because some buttons may cost, some buttons may not cost you. I am not able to get all the resource material or reference material. Even to get the reference material, I need to pay at times. To publish, I need to pay. So when such is the case, where am I going to get the money? Though ICT is important, funding for research is important, right? To get myself updated and work on a particular problem. So other important term, there is also a lack of innovation in curriculum too. As I told you, very important that we always try to do, most of the boards try to tinker with whatever the education. They are not going for radical changes based on the needs and requirements. They just make small innovations, small changes, right? And these small innovations and changes with a small step may not be helpful. And sometimes you have to, or you have to think about something out of the box or radically in order to provide a good curriculum. A good curriculum. So that the good curriculum will provide you quality education. The liberty of the teacher for innovation in curriculum is restricted due to constraints beyond their control. Well, I can sympathize with the teachers. I agree with many of the teachers that they may have a lot of things in mind, but there are restrictions which are there which will sort of constrain them not to go in for probably additional new broad-based ideas or innovative ideas. So we should give the teachers also the liberty to think and innovate so that innovate both in terms of curriculum or developing a curriculum, in terms of research, and in terms of whatever support they want. Yes, next. Next slide, please. The last but not the least is setting up proper benchmarks in teaching and research performance based on a global system, and then evaluate the critical parameters of teaching and academic research in fostering education. So here again, see, NAC is there. NAC is there, and every 5 years we go to NAC, we prepare a very voluminous report and submit it to the accrediting agency, and they will send a committee. The committee will come and probably they will give us a report based on the ranking, based on the SAR which you submit, and probably based on the data that they collect. But the very important thing based on my experience is the continuity of the quality. The continuity is very important. It is not that we should wake up in the 3.5 year or the 4th year and get ourselves prepared for the 5th year. The process should be a continuous process. The process should be a continuous process, which is very important as far as the innovation is concerned, the progress is concerned, right? And whatever the steps that you want to take in order to be on par with the rest of the world, for that also you need to get yourself updated on a continuous basis rather than at an interval of 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is. The conviction to enhance quality is that of the institution alone and not that of the regulatory bodies. The regulatory bodies play a very small role, but it is the institutions which have to play a very important and a pivotal role as far as the quality is concerned. Right. For instance, people talk about assessments. You depend upon or you decide upon. Here, let me come over to this particular last part of my story because I have to finish off. And the interests of students are supreme, and the flexibility. This is another aspect which is very specific even under the current system. The choice-based credit system which is there, right, for this type of transformation from the traditional teacher-oriented to a student-centric. This is very good. CBCS system is very good. It has been there for almost a decade or more than a decade. But you look at these few critical questions which are still there to be addressed, and which still remains as a challenge as far as teachers are concerned. What is the first question? Nobody tries to define what a credit is. Each one and each institution depends upon each course defines a credit which is convenient to him. There should be some sort of uniformity as far as the credit is concerned. That's not happening at all. Depending upon the course, depending upon the course, you try to define a course. Depending upon the workload, the credit is defined. Now, that's something which is not right. Now, the next question, as far as this one is concerned, some arbitrary way of giving credits. Arbitrary way of giving credits. This paper, 4 credits. What is the reason or logic behind 4 credits? Why not 5? Why not 3? Why not 2? So the question needs to be looked at deeper before you give a proper weightage, that is in terms of credits. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because when you move from an institution to institution, when you go from one country to another country, they are not very specific about your 90 marks or 80 marks. It should be a demonstrable one, as I told you in the very beginning, right? The knowledge should be demonstrable and the credits that you have earned, because that credits will give them credits along with the curriculum, along with the skills, will give them an idea about what you have learned, what you have earned. That's more important. So let us not be very much particular about the 3-hour examination and the marks that the student, I'm not saying throw away that particular part of it. The student has to pass, but keep all these in mind. Keep all this in mind. These are all definitely a big challenge as far as the curriculum is concerned. Funding is a challenge, right? Accreditation is a challenge. Curriculum is a challenge, right? Benchmarks, defining benchmarks are a challenge. All these are going to be big challenges, whether it is an old policy, whether it is going to be a new education policy, come whatever it may. Now, let us go over to the last slide. Last slide, please. Last slide. Yeah, this is going to be my last slide. In conclusion, India's large size, long history, and diverse culture, the complicated nature of Indian polity and policy process makes Indian higher education a very complex enterprise. Indeed, I was telling the difference between the state and center, the differences in the center or in the state within itself, from one organ to another organ. So these are the things which are going to make our education system much more complex. Unlike the education system in the Western world, where the diversity is much more minimum. Here, the diversity, the number of languages, the tradition, the culture, all these are there, which makes our system, a higher education system, a very complex issue to be tackled. So the 3 conceptual issues, the purpose, the diversity and competition are to be addressed. So these are the three important things which needs to be addressed. One, the purpose of education, the diversity of our Indian population, and the competition which we have to face are to be addressed along with the status and prospects of India higher education in terms of three cross-cutting themes. So the three issues, conceptual issues are purpose, diversity, and competition. And the three themes which you have to look at is access. We have to see that whether rural or urban, gender-wise, rural, urban, gender-wise, all of them should have access to education. Expansion. Now, we should not narrow down, we should try to expand. Equity and inclusion. All groups of people should come into the stream of higher education. They should have equity. All, whether it is a socially advantaged, socially disadvantaged, rich, poor, all of them should come into the education stream if he or she is interested in a particular program with quality and excellence, without sacrificing the quality and excellence. So, important that these three issues, which are there, the purpose, the diversity, and the competition, and keeping in mind the access, the expansion, equity, and inclusion, and the aim is to attain a quality education, and not only attain quality education, we have to see that we excel in a particular domain or area so that we can be on par with the rest of the world, at least in few domains like in computer science, which is happening now. So with these few points, I think I put across both the changes and challenges, keeping in view the present scenario of higher education. So I just want to thank all the participants for their patience, sitting probably for over an hour or so and listening to this important aspect of higher education. And there we are now at the crossroads. Thank you, organizers, for giving me this opportunity. And if anybody would like to raise any questions regarding what I have presented, probably something which I can pour across, I would be glad to do so. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. With due respect, we thank our most esteemed Professor Emeritus for his enlightening and motivational speech. The detailed statistical reports given by Sir regarding the standard of higher education system in India with comparison to the rest of the world is exemplary. Sir's observation from Kothari Commission to the present new educational policy is highly commendable and very much useful to this forum to transfer the same to the learner's level. Definitely, Sir's presentation today is an eye-opening session for all our esteemed participants. On behalf of this forum, I sincerely thank you, sir, for your informative and enthralling session. Uh, Now the forum is open for a question and answer. It welcomes questions from you. And there is a question which is posted in the chat box, sir.
Yeah.
Shall I read it?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. No.
Yes. Class 12 board examination marks will not be considered for common university entrance test.
Right.
The syllabus of the CUET will be mirrored with the class 12 model syllabus of the NCRT.
Right.
Coaching institutes have already started providing coaching for CET, sorry, ET. Yes, sir. This means that students from urban areas and those who have resources will be at an advantage. Will it be a disadvantage for students coming from rural areas or state board?
Well, I am not going to question about the state board or the central board. If you look at it, the examination says it's an aptitude test. It's an aptitude test. And based on NCERT. Based on NCERT. And I remember I was a part of the team about 3 years back or 4 years back. The state government has also done a lot of work in changing the education system which is on par with the CBSE or the central education. So I'm sure all of you will agree with me that it is not a sort of a one where we say there is something state board which is inferior, there's a central board which is superior. So there's no question of which one is inferior and which one is superior. So both of them are on par. State boards have also taken necessary steps to be on par with the so-called CBE or NCERT, whatever you call it. Now, coming to the question of opening up shops, maybe that will be the right way to answer your question for providing so-called training to the students who are going to aptitude test. Well, I have to say, who is responsible for it? Who is responsible for that? See, you start sending your daughters, forget about the CAT itself. Now you
Yes.
take IITs. From the 8th standard onwards, your interest is in putting your son for a FIG or RIG or RIG or whatever it is, some G. It starts from 8th standard onwards, so that you are interested in putting your son or daughter into an IIT, into IIT. Now you are sending your kid to FIG or IIT-G or whatever G that is available to you. So the shops are open. These shops are always there. Whether it goes for IAS coaching, for IPS coaching, or for bank examination, for anything, shops are always there. Now they are going to exploit, they will try to exploit us. No, it is for us to take care of that. Now, coming to your another question, is it not going to be disadvantageous for the students coming from the rural background? No, let us all admit that the students coming from the rural background are not poor. Poor in the sense, poor in terms of thinking, critically thinking. Only thing is, you need to give them some additional motivation and impetus for them to write the examination. I have seen students getting scores, very good scores, who are coming from rural standards also. Now, the teachers at the school, at the public schools, at the schools which are at the rural standards, I think now they are paid well, much better than even college teachers also. Sorry to say that. I think they should take up, and work in such a way that they provide the necessary training for them so that they will not go to these shops. And now I am sure even local languages, these CAT is going to be there in local languages also, so they can write in the local languages without worrying about the English. So scope is always there, and shops are always there, which goes parallelly. Now it is for us to motivate and see that shops are being reduced and scope is being increased so that students can take. I hope I have answered the question. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So now we will move on to the next session.
Right.
Now we welcome the vibrant lady behind the success of this 5-day International Faculty Development Program, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics and Dean, School of Humanities, Dr. N. Malathi, to present the report of this 5-day online event. Madam, please. Malathi, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. One second. Sorry, Usha ma'am. The most respected resource person of today, Professor Dr. M.R. Srinivasan, Department of Statistics, University of Madras. Next, the most honorable and dynamic, our General Secretary and Correspondent, Mr. Manjeet Singh Nair. Respected and ever motivating Principal, Dr. M.G. Raghunathan. Former Principal, mentor and guide of our Guru Nanak College and advisor for management, Dr. Malin Marais. Vice Principal Shift 1, Dr. LRS Kalanidhi. Vice Principal Shift 2, Dr. Rajashri. Dean Academics, IQAC Coordinator, Deans of various schools, Controller of Examinations, HODs of different departments, faculty members of our college and other colleges of Tamil Nadu and other states, good afternoon to all, and my heartiest and warm welcome to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to give a summary report on 5-day online international FDP on examining the critical frontiers in social sciences domain. Higher education is considered as a very noteworthy area for the social, political, environmental, economic, and overall sustainable development of any country. In higher education, the faculty development is a set of planned actions premeditated to advance the skills, abilities, behaviors, competencies, and knowledge of the teachers, academicians, and researchers to carry out their jobs effectively and efficiently. Therefore, FDP plays a significant role in achieving quality education, proficiency, and sustainability in higher education. Hence, the School of Humanities, Guru Nanak College, organized a 5-day online international FDP from 28/3/22 Monday to 1/4/22 Friday, that is today, with the following objectives. Number one, improve our environmental quality, promote emotional and social intelligence, improve the socio-economic status of women and thereby reduce the gender discrimination, equipping ourselves in teaching pedagogy, industry 4.0, and then move on to industry 5.0. The last one, identifying the changes and challenges in higher education and be as strong pillars in improving the quality of higher education. The response to our FDP was overwhelming. Overall, around 1,500 faculty members from all over India attended our 5-day international online FDP program. The summary of this 5-day international online FDP program is the day 1, Monday, 28/3/22. We started this program with the topic of environmental consciousness and sustainable developmental goals. And the welcome address was given by our college IQAC coordinator, Dr. Swati Palibal, and Dean Languages. The convener of this FDP program, Dr. N. Malati, gave the introduction report of the overall 5-day online international FDP. The resource person was introduced by Dr. Nedunjalian, Dean, Students Affairs, Head, Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Guru Nanak College. The resource person was Dr. Pradeep Smuthalingam, former consultant, PNSDMA, socio-economic impact assessment expert, and regional integrated multi-hazard early warning systems, Thailand. He spoke on millennium development and sustainable development goals also. Mainly, Sir concentrated more on the role and responsibilities of teachers who are all in higher education, especially in achieving the goals of both millennium development goals and sustainable development goals. Hence, we received very good response from all over India. The response level was more than 500. The vote of thanks was given by Dr. Rajendran, Associate Professor, Department of Economics. When we move on to day 2, Tuesday, 29/3/22, the topic was management of emotions for success in career and life. The welcome address was given by Dr. Kulasegaran Sir, Head, PG Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Guru Nanak College. The resource person was Professor Dr. V.D. Swaminathan, Professor, retired, Department of Psychology, University of Madras. Sir focused more on how to control our emotions when we are dealing with the students. Moreover, in works part, family, and in society also, how to maintain our mental happiness without any stress. Definitely, we all would have got benefit out of this. The vote of thanks was given by Mrs. Jagdishwari, Head, Department of English Literature, Guru Nanak College. When we move on, the day 3, Wednesday, 3322, the topic was Women Empowerment and Gender Sensitization. The welcome address was given by Dr. N. Malati, Dean Humanities, Guru Nanak College. The resource person, Ms. Latika Charan, IPS, retired, Government of Tamil Nadu, India, was introduced by Dr. O. Nirmala, Assistant Professor, Department of Defense and Strategic Studies. Madam spoke on women empowerment and she focused more on how to improve the efficiency of women in academic, family, and also in society. The vote of thanks was given by Dr. Shanti, Head, PG Department of Social Work. In day 4, Thursday, 31/3/22, the topic was the paradigm shift from Pedagogy 1.0 to Pedagogy 4.0 to address Industry 4.0. The welcome address was given by Dr. Rajashri, Vice Principal, Shift 2. The resource person, Dr. E. Ram Ganesh, Professor of Education Technology and Director, IECD, Bhatitasan University, was introduced to our audience by Dr. N. Malati, Dean Humanities, Department of Economics, Guru Nanak College. The high-profile resource person, Dr. E. Ram Ganesh, insisted more on teachers should be lifelong learners. Moreover, Sir concentrated much on the 4.0. Learning can take place whenever and wherever is needed with the help of technology. The developed personalized teaching and learning should be implemented in higher education. Hence, the lesson plan has to be changed as creativity plans and develop more of cloud education. The vote of thanks was given by Dr. Jesu Arul Kristilla, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics. The response level crossed 200 and day 5, Friday, today, that is 1/4/22, today's topic is higher education, changes and challenges. Our resource person, Professor Dr. M.R. Srinivasan, Department of Statistics, University of Madras, has given the lecture. He has enlightened us during the LPG, that is liberalization and privatization globalization period, how the development of primary education and the higher education has taken place. Especially the significant level of higher education has taken place. But at the same time, in less developed and developing countries, the pragmatic approach in higher education is comparatively lesser when compared to developed countries, according to Sir. 100% outcome-based education should be followed in our country also. Moreover, Sir has mentioned that the major problem which we are all following at present, especially, is very limited time to concentrate more on the research. That is exactly correct, sir. We are all facing this problem. At least this NEP will solve that problem. We are all believing in it. Funding for research should also be increased. As you said, we are all following the holistic system of education only, sir. Sir has explained well the different aspects of national education policy. Innovation and progressiveness are the important aspects of higher education. Now, we have come to the ending part of this FDP program. As faculty members, we are fully loaded today. Not only loaded, we are all going to implement in our institutions to achieve the quality in higher education. Hence, now I could proudly say that the School of Humanities of Guru Nanak College has achieved the outcome, that is all 5 objectives of this online 5-day international FDP program. Now, it is my duty that I should thank our management, especially our GSR principal, to, to support, to conduct this type of FDP program. Today, the vote of thanks will be given by O. Nirmala, Assistant Professor, Department of Defense and Strategic Studies. This way, I conclude the report of online 5-day international FDP program. Thank you. Thank you, one and all present here. Over to Usha, madam.
Thank you so much, madam, for the details of the report. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. The School of Humanities now welcomes the Assistant Professor, Department of BA Defense and Strategic Studies, Dr. O. Nirmala, to propose a vote of thanks. Madam, please.
Thank you, Usha ma'am. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, yes.
A very happy evening to everyone. It's my proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledgement to the contribution of those who worked really very hard to make this 5-day online international FTP program a grand success. I, Dr. O. Nirmala, Assistant Professor, Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Guru Nanak College, and the entire fraternity of the institution, first of all, extend my most sincere thanks to our Almighty Guru Nanak Devji for making this program a resounding success. On behalf of School of Humanities, I extend my heartfelt thanks to our beloved and most respected General Secretary and Correspondent, Sardar Manjit Singh Nair, for encouraging us to organize this international FTP program. And thank you so much for supporting us in all aspects to make this event a very meaningful one. Thank you so much, sir. A special mention to our most respected and dynamic principal, Dr. M.G. Raghunathan, sir, for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best and standing as a pillar of strength. Thank you so much, sir. Our special thanks to our chief guest of today's program, Dr. M. R. Srinivasan, sir, who spared his valuable time in spite of his busy schedule to enlighten us through his knowledge to make this event a very memorable one. Thank you so much, sir. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new dimensions on outcome-based education. Thank you so much, sir. Our sincere gratitude goes to all well-wishers, Advisor Madam Dr. Marilyn Morris, Vice Principal Shift 1 and 2, various school deans, heads of various departments and staff members, and our most valuable invited participants from various colleges for your rock-solid support and encouragement. Without your support, this event would not have been success. My sincere thanks to all of you. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheel started rolling a week ago. It requires dedication, planning, organizing, and execution. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very proactive and dedicated staffs and research scholars of our school, led by Dean of Humanities, Dr. N. Malati ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking initiative to conduct this international FTP as well as identifying the right personalities for these 5 days. I'm really very short of words for her involvement and her willingness to take on the completion of tasks beyond her comfort zone. Thank you so much, ma'am. I also would like to thank the people who worked behind the screen to make this event happen. Thanks for our technical team, IMS team, media center, and their support throughout the program from day 1 to 5. My special thanks goes to the anchor too. Thank you, madam. And most respected chief guests, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I would like to say that we are all more grateful to all the speakers who graced this occasion from day 1 to today. We thank you all for being with us this evening, and thank you very much. Over to Usha, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I take this opportunity to thank the ever enthusiastic participants for your overwhelming response and support in all the 5 days. Without your participation, this event won't be a successful one. With this happy note, we, the School of Humanities of Guru Nanak College Autonomous, are signing off from this event, and it definitely will catch you all with one more enlightening event in the near future. Thank you, one and all present here. Jai Hind.
Usha?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Usha madam,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank everyone because now in a vote of thanks, our research scholars are not being included. So
Okay.
now I just my sincere thanks to our resource scholars, Miss Amy, Mathus, and Karthik. They are from they are working in evening college also as teaching assistant. So that my sincere and heartfelt thanks to them also. And the most important one is Dr. Usha and Ilanangai. You have taken a special effort in providing our comparing part, and Nirmala madam for your comparing part. My sincere thanks to you, madam. And each and every one of you, I just thank you. Without your help, this FDP would have not been as a successful one as now we are all enjoying. Thank you very much, one and all present here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.